Oh no.
Yeah. I had such a shitty weekend, quite literally and figuratively.
I'm sorry to hear that, Aaron. That's
a great
really
way to
lame.
start live stream.
Yeah. Well,
A lot of stomach
of
toilet.
well, I'm sorry about the confusion for anybody who's trying to watch the live stream on the preset one. I had set it up ahead of time, and since I'm so terrible with technology, I can't figure out how to make it link to the one that's set up ahead of time. So now we're doing this on a separate link. So sorry, I hope that's not too confusing for anybody. I'll go in afterwards and delete out the other one so that there's just one home for this video. But welcome, everyone. Welcome to this Monday, the 27th of February, Solid Ground live stream. I'm so glad to see such nice smiling faces despite a terrible weekend. Aaron.
This makes it all better.
Well, we're delighted to have you here with us, and excited to hear your story that you're going to be sharing with us about your experience leaving academia and what led to that. And maybe, David, do you mind starting us out with the Solid Ground info?
Yeah. Thanks, Leslie. So Solid Ground is a peer support community for anyone concerned about the imposition of critical social justice, CSJ, aka woke, and or COVID mandates in their workplace, university, children's school, or community. We offer weekly online peer support groups in which members share ideas, thoughts, and support for how to navigate the impact of these ideologies and answer the question, where do we go from here? You can join one of our groups for only $5 per month. To find out how to join our community, please visit solidgroundsupport.com. And please note that Solid Ground does not provide psychotherapy or legal advice, and nothing we do should be construed as such. Thank you very much.
Excellent, and thank you. And we hope to see you in our groups. We've been really enjoying those tremendously. We've had a lot of people coming to see us, and we're hearing lots of great stories. It always leaves me with a feeling of optimism to meet new people who are just so clear-minded around some of these issues where we see a lack of cultural clarity.
Yeah. So many good ideas came out of the last group last week, and so much lively discussion. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah, I had the same experience in mine. And so for today, we're going to do this a little differently because we have a specific thing to address and talk about. And there's some interesting components here. So Jody, you want to lay out the context for what we'll be talking about?
Okay. So Aaron made a video. Everyone knows that, right? And an individual who is an alum of the university or college where Aaron worked wrote a letter to the state of Vermont licensing board for, I don't know what it is, mental health counseling,
Kind of allied board of mental health,
to complain about Aaron and his activities on YouTube. And so that is what we're going to be discussing today, is this letter to the Vermont Board of Allied ...
Yeah.
It's a very, very interesting letter.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Very thorough.
Yeah. God. Yeah. Even I wanted me fired after I read it.
Well, here's a key sentence that stands out. While challenging ideas is important, okay, Aaron's thinking, not Aaron's behavior, or Aaron like went out on a rampage and crashed his car into a restaurant, but Aaron's thinking, which happens inside your head, is harmful to persons of color, not just within Vermont, but globally. Aaron, we know that white people have tremendous amount of power. Do you ever imagine that your mere thoughts inside your head could cause harm to people?
Well, not at the time, but then, Thomas Sowell, John McWhorter, Coleman Hughes, they all called me and they were just in tears. I mean, they were beside themselves with what I said. And I had no idea that my ideas were so destructive.
Nor that what did he say? Persons of color were so fragile.
Yeah.
A person of color in Nigeria,
Yeah.
like maybe doesn't even watch YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly was stricken.
Yeah.
Like fell down in the middle of the street because Aaron Kindsvatter vibes.
Yeah.
You have a
I'm
powerful
just gonna
mind,
say,
Aaron.
yeah, well, right off, I think an awful lot more of people of color and Black people than the complainant does. I'm going to go out on a risk and say that that they are not delicate and are quite mature in being able to decide for themselves what is and what is not harmful. Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and suggest that to the progressives who are out there.
And that brings up a point of how paternalistic the social justice mindset is, for something that's claims to be about liberating you from oppression and patriarchy.
Yeah,
it's quite decides for you what you can handle.
It is. John McWhorter wrote a book called Woke Racism, in which he makes that point that, what must you think of me to think that by, becoming enraged about sharing different ideas or critiquing ideas of people like Ibram X. Kendi or Robin DiAngelo, that you're somehow causing me harm. There's a condescension in that. There's a pity in that, and neither condescension or pity are gestures of respect. But the thing that really bothers me is, I made this video, and what I was in this video, which a lot of people saw, and a lot of people really had a very positive response to it. What I was essentially saying is that anti-racism and white fragility and the idea of whiteness are extremely bad ideas, and they most certainly are bad ideas in the context of a therapy conversation where one has to use, very circumscribed composites of persons in order for these ideas to make sense. And so, in other words, you have to think of yourself as white or Black. You have to think of yourself as either an anti-racist or a racist. If you have to be willing to suspend disbelief so that you don't recognize the circular logic of ideas like, if you don't accept my ideas, that's proof that my ideas have merit. So in this video, I was objecting to that in higher education and to the inclusion of ideas like that in therapy. And and I was speaking my role as a university professor. And what really bothers me about this complaint, and so there's two different, entities here. I'm speaking as as a professor at the time. This is in March of 2021. And, providing this criticism and saying these ideas are making their way into therapy and it's not going to do anybody any good. And I reject them. But the complainant has made a report, not to the university. They may have done that, but I never heard anything about that. But they've made a report not to the university, but to the state of Vermont, who has the power invested in it to issue licenses to mental health professionals and also has the power to investigate when there has been, when someone has, broken ethics pertaining to the practice of mental health counseling. So there's a big difference. So this student is saying, I don't like what you're saying, you're a mean person, you think harmful things. Okay, that's fine. But this person is sending that to the university, or not, I'm sorry, the state of Vermont. And so you would think that things would just stop there, that the state of Vermont would say, oh, we have nothing. If this doesn't pertain to psychotherapy practice, and if this isn't a complaint from one of your patients, then, we have no business taking any kind of a stance on this. And in fact, the person who wrote this is not now, nor has ever been, one of my patients. And in no place in the complaint does the complainant mention my psychotherapeutic practice. And so I'm left with the question of, why did the board initiate an investigation? Not one of my patients, nothing to do with my psychotherapy practice, but the state of Vermont is investigating me anyway.
So it's sort of like they stepped out of their lane. If there was a complaint about your teaching ethics or something, then it should have gone to the school. Right. Instead, this goes to the state. And instead of just brushing this off and saying, no, that's not our purview, they jumped in and initiated an investigation.
Yeah, and it's really scary to be under investigation by the state. I guess I wasn't here at the time, but I'm told that someone was coming and taking pictures of the building that I work in. They're coming in and taking pictures of my mailbox.
Oh my gosh.
So
signs of whiteness.
Yeah. God. And it's also when the state has so much power, because what they could do, and theoretically anyway, is they could take away my license to practice psychotherapy. And then that would really hurt my livelihood. So, there are really good reasons for a counseling board to investigate, a counselor. Clients are very, very, very vulnerable when they seek psychotherapy. And if something is off during the psychotherapy, then that needs to be rectified. So it's important that, there's some mechanism in place for the oversight of what happens in psychotherapy. But it appears, and this is coming on the heels of Jordan Peterson being investigated for, what some people would consider controversial tweets, but certainly protected, that his board is taking action against him. And so after that happened, I began to think about, well, maybe I better speak publicly about this, because if I'm right, this complaint is so lacking in any kind of merit that the question that I'm left with is, why did they initiate it? And the only answer I'm able to come up with is, this is political retribution, that the members of the board also don't like the fact that I'm speaking out against Kendi and D'Angelo. Because I have no evidence, there's nothing that supports that there is any substance to this complaint at all.
Despite there being no violation of any of the licensed ethics components or requirements, they took the content of the complaint seriously enough to harass you for it, basically.
Yeah, and included in the complaint, the student, and maybe we can read some of this if people would be interested in hearing.
Yeah, will you tell us a little bit about what was alleged?
Well, if people don't mind, I'll just kind of have to read it here. But so it says, Recently, a university associate professor, Aaron Kindsvatter, published a video titled Racism and the Secular Religion in the University. The transcript of his video can be found in the attachment section of this document. The video is a critique of critical race theory. Critical race theory is an academic movement focused on systemic implications of racism, primarily in the United States. Its intention is to cause scholars, educators, and the general public to critically examine law as it intersects race, issues of racial justice, and cultural awareness. Aaron's rebuttal against CRT is based on the idea that it is damning towards white persons and that is racist towards white people, which I don't think I ever actually said that, but it's probably true. While challenging ideas is important, Aaron's thinking is harmful to persons of color, not just within Vermont, but globally. He demands that anti-racist work ceases and makes a statement that anti-racist education reduces his identity to his race. I'm not sure I said that. These statements damage efforts that persons of color and campus groups have been advocating for years. This public act also resorts in many steps backward for the university and the work it has been done to raise awareness of systemic racism, oppression, and power. As an alum of the program, I write to you today to increase the awareness of these videos and the problematic interactions some students have come forward with regarding Aaron Kindsvatter. I feel as though an investigation at the university must take place and that it's critical that you are aware of the present situation at the university and the lack of consequence for Aaron Kindsvatter. The university has been contacted regarding these concerns, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. The public may judge their profession and institution by their utterances. Hence, they should at all times be accurate, should exercise appropriate restraint, and should show respect for the opinions of others, and should make every effort to indicate that they are not speaking for whatever. Regarding this, the public is already judging the institution by the utterances. The first posted video has over 12,000 views as of March 14th, and the number is rising quickly. News of these videos and tweets are spreading quickly through social media. There's a petition for Aaron Kindsvatter's dismissal with over 1,000 signatures. There's been a story published by the university newspaper, which will draw even more attention. Individuals are already responding negatively. One commenter said, as someone who was interviewed for this program and offered a spot and turned it down, I've never been happier with an academic choice. Another says, professor of counseling, the greater harm I cannot even fathom. Suggestions that individuals have perceptions of this program already. Clients of alumni are bringing this to their counseling session, blah, blah, blah. Then Dr. Kindsvatter has not exercised appropriate restraint, posting these videos publicly online while identifying the university is in no way showing restraint. His comments and his videos and his tweets are vitriolic and clearly indicate white supremacy.
Absolutely.
Most notably, his comparison of social justice concepts to white genocide, which I didn't do that. The Anti-Defamation League clearly notes these concepts of white genocide, blah, blah. Dr. Kindsvatter has not shown respect for the opinions of others. Now there I am guilty because I think these ideas are really stupid and toxic, and I don't respect them at all. In his video, he clearly states that he finds social justice ideology as to be authoritarian and toxic, and that he found no wisdom in the works of Kendi and D'Angelo. Further, blah, blah, blah.
So that's a complaint. That's part of the complaint.
Yeah, this
you
is
didn't find them wise.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. And then there's, I don't know, there's just another stated he also, so one of the books that as a professor I assigned was The Coddling of the American Mind. And
That is a good book.
yeah, yeah, ironically.
Mhm.
Another student stated there was one course where I literally did not even know what we were supposed to be learning. It was such a disorganized shit show. He also made us buy books and other resources we literally never opened, wasted time and money. Another stated having panic attacks all month long. That was spring of 2019. During one of our sessions, he wanted me to read The Coddling of the American Mind. I started reading it and stopped 10 pages in. The book had too many conservative viewpoints regarding marginalized, oppressed, and colonized population. So I mean, it goes on like this. It goes on and on like that.
So that's the basic substance of the complaint is you're a terrible professor and you don't think Kendi and D'Angelo are wise. And again, this is going to the state. So these things
so this
might
is
be
sent to the state.
It's and it sounds like there's this like kind of tattling to daddy because mommy didn't do anything about it. Like we've been trying to talk to the university, but was there a complaint lodged, or did the university dismiss these as
I
they
never
didn't take
heard.
anything to the investigation process?
No, I never
Okay.
heard anything about it.
So they went to it supposedly, if we can believe this person, we went by the proper channel and this was deemed not worthy of investigation. So we were dismissed. So we're going to go tell the other parent. And now we're going to try to get him in trouble over here.
Right.
Doesn't it quote it and say that, there was a response by the dean who said that, Aaron's ideas are protected within the academy by the principles of academic freedom. So
the university sort of passed on the issue of the videos. And so so now this person is saying, well, we're going to go to the board. And which is fine. Like this person strikes me as being indoctrinated. They strike being young.
I think that's accurate.
I can appreciate that people have a lot of passion regarding these ideas. And if you've only ever been exposed to one perspective, or if, or if you've been taught that these ideas are sacred and that questioning them is like in and of itself offensive, then I can understand why a person would be enraged by that and it would feel like there's been some miscarriage of justice. What I don't understand is the board's following up on it and initiating an investigation. That was just wrong.
So it sounds like you're saying you don't necessarily hold it against the individual who made the complaint, because you can understand why they would be indignant or feel like their viewpoints and their worldview is threatened by what you're saying. But it's the validation of that by the board. Yeah,
I mean, imagine you're taking a walk in your neighborhood and little Johnny runs the edge of his nose and says, like, you're a big snothead. And I mean, what would you do as an adult? You'd probably just say, wow, Johnny's got a few issues. He seems like a handful, whatever. What would really freak you out, though, is if Johnny's mom comes out after him and says, yeah, you're a giant snothead. And that's what the board is doing in this case. And that I take issue with.
I have a theory.
Johnny's mother should know better.
I have a theory about this, Aaron. My theory is that the board felt like it had to take action because your video because of all of the response that your video got. As a person speaking from experience,
yeah,
I made a video about addressing Smith College, a very mild-mannered video, I might add.
Yes, it was a very mild-mannered video, Jody.
Thank you. And I thought about this a lot. When I made the video, I thought this could be a dud, could be like 2 people watch it, or it explode. Like it's going to be one or the other.
Right.
If it been a dud, like 2 people watched it and nothing, there was no media attention to it at all. I think I can say with some certainty that the college probably wouldn't have felt that it needed to respond, the need to respond to it, because then you would just be calling more, it'd be like free publicity for me, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking that the board felt like, in your case, it had to do something because your video was so public. I think if nobody had watched your video, they probably would have been like, we're not going to investigate this, because if they did, that would actually call more attention. Your
Well,
video.
if that's the case, I'd really like the board to come out and say so. Like like what I would really love to have happen in the interest of transparency is for the board to explain themselves, because there was no merit to the complaint, and thus no reason to start an investigation. And so if that's the case, what you're saying is true, Jody, then their behavior was absolutely inexplicable and borderline illegal, because now we're talking about a government entity investigating we're not talking about a government agency investigating a practitioner with the welfare of patients in mind. We're talking about a government agency investigating because they're too cowardly to say, we're sorry, we're here to protect the welfare of individual clients. We're not here to protect the integrity of a thought system or to censor the citizens of Vermont or any citizen of the United States in the interest of making us look good. Like, I really love them to say that.
I know, I would love it too, but the reality is there's like the surface level truth, and then there's the real truth.
Yeah.
Like, there's bullshit, and then there's
right.
Yeah, it would be nice if they would say that, but it's hard to believe they ever would.
Well, you know what stands out to me about this? In both your situation, Aaron, and in Jordan Peterson's situation, the complaints have nothing to do with anything that took place in the context of your private practice.
Right.
These complaints are based on public statements that were made by Jordan Peterson and by you. And so if licensing boards are going to start investigating people for their opinions, then it basically leads to a situation in which any licensed professional no longer maintains their right to use free speech. If they are expressing something that deviates from these current notions of critical social justice. And do we as Americans want a system in which licensing boards are determining the opinions, which opinions their licensees are able to have? And I think clearly the answer to that is no, and that's quite a horrifying idea, but that is indeed what is happening. That complaint against you clearly should have been dismissed as a nuisance complaint and a vexatious complaint. It's utter nonsense. And that person was not a client of yours. The people that made complaints about Jordan Peterson were also not clients. They were people who didn't like what they saw on Twitter and the Joe Rogan show.
Yeah. The other thing that strikes me about this as very pernicious is that, I have occasionally seen patients who have come in specifically because they've been the victims of, or they've experienced psychological abuse at one of these DEI trainings or in one of these intersectionality classes or whatever have you. And if the board, if it becomes known that the Board of Allied Mental Health Professionals is investigating people for speaking out on these issues, might it not then follow that people are going to be reluctant to take on patients who are having these kinds of problems? Like, might you be worried that your therapy notes are going to someday be scrutinized to make sure that you're kind of anti-racist enough? And and so effectively then where this ends up is therapy potentially being used for political ends, where part of our job as therapists is supposed to be to say introduce so-called anti-racism into our private sessions with our clients. And I think that things are headed that way. I think that the true believers, when it comes to anti-racism and all this other garbage, the one thing that they know how to do is to gain influence, and so they apply for positions on editorial boards, they apply for positions of power, and then use their ideology to sort of as a weapon to make sure that criticisms of their beloved ideas are kept quiet.
Yeah, it also concerns me that I agree with everything you just said. And an additional concern for me is that it reduces the credibility of the mental health field and diminishes trust between the practitioner and the client, because there are clients who might be afraid to see a therapist because they are afraid that their therapist is going to inject ideology into the sessions, which has been happening. And, with the organization Critical Therapy Antidote, which is committed to maintaining the integrity of the talking therapies, we get requests all the time. Hey, is there a therapist in my state that can see me who is committed to keeping their practice ideology free so that we can actually address my issues? Because it's actually, if you put yourself in the client's position, it's a little bit scary to think that you might go to you're very vulnerable when you go, you're telling them your those thoughts, and that this person might somehow attack you on the basis of race. Or, God forbid that you are one of the people that has had a terrible experience in one of these trainings and you now process it, and you go in and your therapist says, well, it seems to me like this is an example of your white fragility and you're just having a really hard time accepting this.
Right.
They'd be abused all over again.
That's right. And I just wonder if when the board made this decision to investigate me, did they think about that? Did they spare a thought for those kinds of concerns? Because it strikes me as either like this was an impulsive, we didn't really look at this before we started an investigation kind of issue, or it strikes me as like political retribution. Those are the only two hypotheses that I've been able to come up with. And if the board will come out and explain itself, then I would be happy to also subject their explanation to serious inquiry to see if it has merit. But I don't think it did.
Well, there's kind of an asked and answered quality to this social justice thinking that is really perplexing to me, where people adopt it and assume it, and it is right, and it is the one and only way, and any deviation whatsoever is just deemed immoral, and we don't have to ask why, we don't have to investigate this, we're not going to take these things very seriously in any way, we're not really going to examine our thoughts on this, we just know that we are right and you are wrong. And so with that as the backdrop, I think that it's a very strange closed-mindedness.
Yes, and a very, very dangerous closed-mindedness.
I don't know. I think you guys are giving them too much credit. I think they're just, most of them are enablers. I'm just reminded of this Solzhenitsyn. Yeah. We know they're lying. They know they are lying. They know that we know they're lying, and we know they know that we know they are lying. But still,
they lying.
I think we give them too much credit. It's like, I think most of people on the Vermont board of whatever it is, licensing, No, yeah, like inside, deep down, they know this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, this guy's got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Now the spotlight's on us. Somebody's made a complaint to us. Like we
Yeah.
better do the right thing.
Yeah.
Like even though we know the right thing, like there's not even any like link to the actual reality. It's like it's just all. I don't know. I think I would be wary of giving people too much credit for trafficking in reality.
Yeah, right. Well, the
Really,
problem with that kind of thinking is that now, because of solid ground, they're in the spotlight again. And in fact, one of the things that I thought might be kind of nice, if people are willing to do this, is I thought, there's a little section, there's comments section below. And I thought maybe what I'd do is just write a brief, polite letter to the governor of Vermont, Phil Scott, that people can copy and paste and send in an email form to Phil Scott, something to the effect of, we're concerned that people who are licensed to practice mental health are being put under pressure to adopt uncritically political ideas into the practices, and that the board is using the power invested in them by the state to then investigate those people as a kind of political retribution. Would you please look into this, Governor Scott?
Yeah, well, if you want to write that, I'll just let everybody know that'll be in the notes under the video. It probably won't be right away, but in the next couple of hours, I'll get that updated.
Yeah, it'll be easy to write. And if Governor Scott receives even, 50 of these emails, then he's going to go down to the board and he's going to say, what's going on? And he's going to look at a copy of this complaint and say, he doesn't think the way you want, and he said so, and you decided to, and he likes Duran Duran. I like Duran Duran. What are you people doing? That's one of the, like, if you look, I don't know if we could put share the screen for like the section that has the.
Yeah, so I would like to see some of those because there were some crazy things included in the complaint.
Yeah,
let's check in on the chat real quick, and then maybe you can share your screen, Aaron.
See if
I'll have you know that Simon LeBon and I were separated at birth. I feel it. I write him all the time about it. He never writes back.
Let's see if Simon LeBon's in the chat.
Yeah. Duran. So checking in on the chat. I'm not going to read everything, but I'll just breeze through and read a few. So Christina is asking, is it the video that you did over a year ago? Yeah, when was that, Aaron, that you did the video?
It was in March of 2021.
Okay. Yeah. And then Patty P says, a lot happening in Vermont. That's where I am.
Mm.
And Andra Boudreau points out that this is like 1984. And Jay Gannon says, we need to support economic reforms like UBI, or this wave will overtake us all. Well, that's an interesting topic. We could talk about that sometime. Let's see. Jay Bourne says, in-depth interview came out today with Chris Rufo by Jordan Peterson. Cool.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
And then Theo Kirkley, thank you, sends us a super chat, says this may sound crazy, but I believe your feelings and thoughts can affect people in the world. And that's, getting back to what we were talking about, where we were kind of making fun of that part in the complaint. But I don't think it's crazy. I just think it's unworthy of a complaint to a licensing board that somebody's, there's nothing that should be dealing in empiricism, and that should be dealing in this actually happened, and therefore because of this happened to this person. We need more empiricism than just that. I don't think that's crazy though.
Well, and people also need to distinguish between using I see people who are being emotionally abused by their spouses all the time in the course of my work. And so I know that what that person is saying is correct, that ongoing emotional abuse is wrong. However, you cannot conflate ongoing emotional abuse with speaking out against theories that are ethically unsound in the course of practicing therapy, that there's a big difference there. And I think if we think about it, that distinction is very clear. Like that, no one is arguing that, hey, we should all be free to go down the street shouting nasty names at people. I get that, but I think it's also very clear that that's not what's going on.
No, and in terms of like theories that are introduced into education or therapy, typically when something is brought up, there's the ability to examine, discuss, talk about the merits, refine. And with this particular ideology, it stands alone, in my experience anyway, as something that is introduced like a bomb dropping, and we are not ever allowed to challenge it in any way, or else we are harming people.
Right.
But just by asking questions.
Yeah, the expansion of the concept of harm, it's expanded so much that asking questions now falls within the realm of, I don't know, a microaggression or whatever, that you just can't ask that. But certainly that expanded use of harm is used by dishonest professors in order to slip these ideas in through the door of empathy.
Yeah, well said. And Michael Granquist says, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, whatever oversight mechanisms there are, there will be people trying to control and abuse it. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Whatever oversight mechanism there are, there will be people trying to control and abuse it. If they can't get you in the first instance, they'll try the next level.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
Yeah. And he says brute force bullying.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jay Gannon says power games control dramas. Dismissive laughter makes it worse. They have a point, yet are pathological.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know. Maybe that we are being dismissive and that's not taking it seriously enough. I'm not sure.
If that is what the person is saying, then I think that there could be. I do think that we need to kind of be okay when presented with ridiculous ideas of dismissing them, like not maybe dismissing the person who holds them, but I think it's okay to say that something just doesn't have merit. And some of the ideas like D'Angelo's that are put out there, they are laughable, and laughing at something sounds dismissive, but it's also a good belly laugh is a good way to keep toxic ideas out of workplaces and so forth. And D'Angelo has provided me with many hours of mirth, and so has Kendi. I think they're absolute clowns. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry for that. I don't mean to be dehumanizing, but I'm not being dehumanizing to them. I'm being dehumanizing to what they are putting out there as truth.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Yeah, it's when it's ridiculous, sometimes laughter is a rational response.
Yeah.
Let's see. Lack of wisdom acknowledgement. That's a new one. That's from Michael Granquist. Yeah. Yeah. So Andra Boudreau says, so diversity of ethnicity and race, but not diversity of thought or perspective. I hate that a perfectly good and useful word like diversity has been hijacked in this sense. That's
really too bad. Racism too. Racism is like a word that really needs not to be ridiculous, because I do encounter that in my practice all the time. And someone else said earlier that, words hurt and, actions hurt. I absolutely think that's true, that I have run into legitimate racism and homophobia all the time. But what these so-called good-willed people are doing is they've made racism mean everything. And so as a consequence, it now means virtually nothing. And that's not good, because it is out there. And I'm sure other practitioners like me have encountered it, and it's a very dehumanizing thing. But we really need to protect those terms that are important ones, and they, the the extreme left has done a very slipshod job of doing that, and the Allied Board of Mental Health just jumped on that bad bandwagon of not protecting very, very important words and ideas from being used for such devious purposes that they lose their importance.
Yep. I think that's a very good point. Just a couple more, I'll read a couple more chats, and then I really want to see some of those examples because they're pretty great. Let's see. So CNY photo video, hello, says complaints like this can be designed to put fear down the spines of anyone else that might speak out.
Yeah, that is true. And the only response to that is do not be afraid. We live in the land of the free, the home of the brave. Let's remember that. You can't let these people frighten you. What you can do is make a video afterwards showing how stupidly they've acted.
William J. McCartan says, don't forget to like this video. It helps the creators maintain this channel and its ability to provide coherent arguments against the ideology hijacking our educational institutions. Thank you, William. Yes, please like the video if you like it. Let's see. I'm just going to skip down. Jay Bourne says, at this rate, the mental health field will be in the trash can with the CDC, FDA, JD, Justice Department, FBI, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, and that's kind of the fear, I think, is that we're seeing things that, like Jennifer's pointing out, really undermine the credibility of this field so much.
Yeah, it does. It really, I was just talking with a friend and trying to talk with him about how to use psychology today to find a therapist for himself. And I found myself being really nervous because I was like, okay, you really got to look for these words in their bio. And if you see them, hard pass. If they're talking about identity, or anything
Pronouns.
like that. Or pronouns. It's like pronouns is like, that's a hard one for me because on the individually, if I'm meeting with someone and it's really important to them that I use their pronouns, I'll do that. And that seems like more okay if I'm one-on-one. In groups, I really don't like it because the social justice left has been masterful at taking politeness and weaponizing it. Because now in groups, when you start to ask about pronouns, it's being polite and it's engaging in a compliance ritual with an ideology that says it's okay to rip the healthy breast tissue off of adolescence in the name of an ideology. So that's really complicated for me, like and very contextual about where I use it. But I certainly don't want to contribute to any kind of a ritual that makes the abuse of children seem more normal or okay.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on pronouns. I feel like that's a whole separate hour if you guys want to ever talk about that.
Yeah.
One more, I'll just read one more and then we'll show some examples because we only have a couple minutes left. Jay Gannon responded back, they see the laughter and it is perceived as condescending, so they double their hate. They are fighting economic oppression in their minds, which is partially true and growing daily. And I see that. And I every now and then I get comments on this channel talking about, pushing me one direction or the other. You're usually, I just got one the other day from somebody who was said that they feel they're very left leaning. And when they saw the title of the video that I made with Jennifer, they were really offended by it because we called it woke zombie mom. and I have to say, like, I see your point. I do see your point. And at the same time, I don't believe in self-censorship. I don't believe in that. I think that we can hold sort of a centrist position while still seeing the humor in all of this stuff. And if you listen to that video, you know why we called it that, because it came out in the context of the conversation.
Right. And I think the person who complained at that would have to concede that, that wasn't just pulled out of nowhere. There's a fair degree of evidence to suggest that the psychology of mobs and the psychology of individuals are very different things. And yeah, and zombie may not be a totally inaccurate kind of
Not
joke.
very polite, but
It
it
may
was
not be
funny.
polite, but yeah.
Yeah, and I do know it probably enrages some people, but I don't know about you guys, but part of this whole process is just realizing you're not going to be all things to everybody, and you're not going to always say the thing that pleases I can't, if I were to do that, I would just be silent.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Aaron, would you, with the last couple minutes that we have here, will you show us some of the lovely examples of what was so offensive that you did to enrage this
Okay,
person?
let's see.
Wanna see
I will if I can.
Can you share your screen, or if you
I'm
can't?
trying to do that. I'm
Okay.
not very good at this. Can someone else share their screen if they share at the end of the,
Yeah, I probably
like
can.
where it starts on the, like the Twitter things?
Yes, I can do that. Let
Okay,
me
so
pull
let's
this.
go way down to the bottom so we don't get any of the names in there. We'll just go where we'll see some very, very shady characters show up on my Twitter feed.
Like
All
me,
right.
Jen.
Like that Jody Shaw.
Yeah.
Oh, Clifton Duncan.
All right.
Oh my God.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is let's see. I'm going to scroll up just a little bit. This is where we start. You want to walk us through this a little bit, Aaron?
Yeah. I don't know, Christopher Rufo. I think
So
he's
this was
doing good
offensive
things.
that you retweeted
Yeah,
him?
that I liked this.
See, he's saying stop critical race
Stop
theory.
critical race theory, which I'm
So-
all for. Clifton Duncan, it strikes me as a really kind of a thoughtful guy, and
Mhm.
I probably liked that video.
Yeah, you liked
this-
something he said
this
about
next
MLK
thing-
Day?
Yeah, this next thing by me, it was I was retweeting something by James Lindsay that's put out by an organization that's called Genocide Watch. And a lot of people took this to mean that I was afraid that like everyone was going to form a mob and like hunt down white people or something. And that never even occurred to me. What did occur to me though, that is that what Genocide Watch looks for is the dehumanizing of people and then the putting of people into groups so that you're allowing that kind of that racial animus to drive change, and it almost always results in tragedy. And
Could be any group, right? Like,
but it could be any
our
group.
minds are
It
being
does,
primed to do that.
yeah, this came out because they're worried about some of the things that are going on in Africa. Like if you start to see these trends, it means that there's about to be a racial war. And I don't understand why people I think they look at me, they see that I'm white, and they assume that I'm worried about like people coming after white people. And that's not it. What I was trying to show there is that this is a terrible way of thinking, not an intellectual refinement.
Well, and it sounds like this is where they got that allegation that you were saying that there was going to be white genocide or something. They just strung too many thoughts together with
that's really
skipping steps.
That's a dumb interpretation of what I was doing there. And anyone who knows me knows I would never do that.
Oh no, you follow Neil Barnes.
Yeah, he's no. Oh, and delightful.
He's super
dissident.
straight. Oh yeah.
Delightful dissident
Oh,
is-
Jennifer, you showed up in his complaint.
Oh, Jennifer's outed as
all these people that I follow and I like what they say is
wow,
you know,
you're really
stuff.
you're clearly dangerous.
I'm clearly I think
Oh,
there's
there's more Neil Barnes.
there's more Neil Barnes,
Right.
that guy. There's Christopher Rufo.
Yeah, it's something they really. This is
They
all
really don't
highlights of-
like
yeah,
Christopher
yeah.
Rufo.
Yeah, they
very
really
bad
don't like him.
highlighting. Very,
Oh,
very
there's
bad.
delightful dissident again. And Christopher Rufo.
Oh wow, these are some dangerous people you follow.
Oh,
here.
there's Helen Pluckrose. Oh my God.
Helen Pluckrose. Yep.
there's
Oh,
something
and here
that
I
says-
see some
Oh,
Jody.
Jody Shaw.
Jody
Oh yeah, there
Shaw.
am I liking Jody Shaw.
Oh no.
And that's the ghost of Christmas future if we don't watch out. And that's
Oh,
pretty
gosh.
evil.
What's going on in your state? Where are they? I want to talk now.
Yeah,
And then you
it's-
said good old fashioned ignorance and tribalism.
Yeah, which I think is true.
Yeah. Turning towards whiteness. Okay.
You're she's so cool.
She is really cool.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, she's great. And this is
Oh, and then you said something nice to her.
yeah, I
and
said
so
yeah,
that's-
and I just said, it's really hearing from you does make this better, and thanks
Yeah.
for that. And then
There's more Jody.
there's more Jody Shaw.
Jody showing up in the complaint again. Oh man, Jody.
I was responding to your video.
Yeah, Katie
Oh, yeah.
Herzog.
So-
She's a no good Nick.
This is guilt by association. You
Yeah.
hang out with the wrong people and you like what they have to say. Oh, Duran
Somebody said,
Duran.
what
Now we have
somebody
Duran.
said what's something that sounds nice but isn't, and I said equity, diversion, and conclusion.
Oh, that's really quite
Equity,
witty.
diversity, and
Yes.
yeah, and here it's like, okay. Oh, here's one. James Lindsay says, as a point of fact, I've never killed anyone's grandma.
And you
I
said wuss.
respond that he's a wuss. I think everyone should, kill a grandma,
Yeah.
obviously.
So I don't understand Duran Duran. Does
Okay, I
anybody
don't
understand
either.
this?
Okay, this person needs to get off of my blue suede shoes, okay? Because Duran Duran is the bomb, and call me a racist, can't call me a white supremacist, but leave Duran Duran out of it. That's just, and just for the record, I'm sure Duran Duran does not support my video.
Oh.
They're
So
very
funny.
great guys, and
Oh, Brett. Brett is
Brett
awesome.
Alderman.
Alderman.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He's
Yes,
you'll
he
just-
is.
A lot of people are going to hell, and that's like put on there as sort of like evidence that I don't know, evidence.
I know
of
the
something.
fact that you had
Evidence for what?
support was cited.
Yeah.
The fact that people supported you was cited as evidence of why you're bad.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and this guy wrote something. He was like, if people were, if social justice mob were coming after me, I'd I'd ignore them, and if they kept doing it, I'd like knock their block off or something. And I wrote, damn straight. And I mean, it didn't occur to me in a million years that this guy was advocating violence. If he had said, I'm gonna pick up and shotgun and shoot,
If you
social
said something
justice types.
specific.
Yeah, but this
Yeah.
guy was essentially, what he was saying is, I'm going to have a fighting spirit.
It sounds
Okay.
metaphorical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who really, really wanted it, looked at that and said, oh, look, he's advocating violence. So it's just kind of ridiculous stuff. But yeah, that's what it was. So
Well, so
So
now
what I-
we've
what I
seen what
hope-
the substance of complaints against professors
Very,
are.
very good citations.
yeah, excellent
This
citations.
This person complained that your video didn't have any citations, so
Yeah.
they provided their citations.
Yeah, good example of citation work there. Yeah.
Yes. Well, hopefully, I hope what happens as a result of this is that the state board will, or the governor will adopt some sort of legislation that indicates that there needs to be some sort of weeding out process, that nuisance complaints can't happen, because the investigation in and of itself is a punishment. Going through that process is a punishment,
it
and
is.
nobody would wish that on anybody.
Traumatized.
And I think what we've shown here is the board had no grounds upon which to start an investigation, and they need to be accountable for that. They need to change their practices, and the governor of the state needs to understand that this is going on and put a stop to it.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that this time with us and going over that with us. I think it's really educational to see what the content of this is and the way that these things are being used in a malicious and harassing way in order to bite the heels of people who are getting out of line with the social justice narrative. So I think that's really informative. I know Jennifer has a heart out, and you do too, Aaron.
Yeah, I
So
do. Yeah.
your dog is getting some love in the chat, Jennifer.
Us to be loved.
Oh, T.S. Eliot, we love you.
Well, thanks, guys. It was so nice spending this time with you, and thanks for inviting me
Aaron.
on.
Glad you could be here. And I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and we look forward to seeing